Hey, this is Mr. V with a quick lesson on relating percents, fractions, and decimals. It's important to understand going into solving percent problems or anything along those lines that percents, fractions, and decimals are just really, they're the same thing. They're three different representations of the same idea, which is parts of a whole. Quantities of parts of numbers or parts of groups of numbers that are less than one. So here's how it works out. 50%. Let's start with a simple one. Everybody knows what that stands for. Well, what that is, and here's how you write it. When you say it, you write 50%. It literally means 50 out of every 100. And if we read this fraction properly, that's 50 hundredths, and that's written this way, 50 hundredths, which happens to be the same as 5/10. 5 out of 10, same thing. It's 1/2. I could keep going, right? 1/2 and so on. You need to understand how really these are just all the same thing. And when we work with percent problems, you'll need to translate this symbol, 50%, into either a fraction or a decimal, because that's much more useful, much more practical to work with. 25%. Here's another example. Well, you should be able to predict what that's going to look like. It'll be 25%. And that's the same as, if you read this properly, that's 25 hundredths. Looks like this as a decimal. 25 hundredths happens to be the same as 1/4. If I simplify this all the way, I'll get 1/4. Once in a while, that's useful. Go all the way. Many times, it's actually more practical to keep it as a percentage or as a decimal. 37%. Here's another example. Well, looks like 37%. And that's 37 hundredths. It looks like this as a decimal. Right? You've got to be able to go between any of these. One last one. This gets people confused sometimes. 8%. Well, that would look like 8%. And here's the bit that sometimes messes people up. They get used to writing a 0, a decimal, and then they write an 8. 8 hundredths is not the same as 8/10. Don't put an 8 there. That's a 0. And then your 8. That's 8 hundredths, right? In other words, this does not equal this, right? That's 8/10. This, actually, 8/10 is, you should be able to predict what that is. What is that as a percentage? This is the same as 0.80. That's 80 hundredths, which is the same as 80%. Right? So 8%, 80%, not the same. Don't make that mistake. All right, let me draw a line across the bottom here, separate this out a little bit. I'll give you a few things to try out. So to start off, and I'll use the same format I've been using in this lesson here. Let's go with 23%, and you tell me what that is as a fraction and what that is as a decimal. Next, I'll give you the fraction, 89 hundredths. And you tell me what that is, as a percentage and as a decimal. And last but not least, I'll give you the decimal. And you can go ahead and figure out what that is as a fraction and as a percentage. Pause the video, get these blanks filled out, and when you're all set, resume, and I'll fill this out for you, and we'll be done. Alrighty, should be good to go. If you're not done, stop me now. I'm about to do this. All right, 23%. Write what you say. 23%. That's it. Now read it properly. That's 23 hundredths. 0.23. 23 hundredths. Over here, 89%, or I could say 89 hundredths. Either way, right? 89 hundredths looks like that, or 89%. And here, this is 3 hundredths. It looks like this, 3 hundredths. And if I read it as a percentage, 3%. 3 out of every 100. There we go. And voila, that's how you do it.